Hey there, everyone. We'll just get started in a minute here. Sarah, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Awesome. I can. How you doing?
Well, how are you today?
Doing really well, really well.
Awesome.
Yeah, I guess we can get started here now.
Okay.
For those of you that don't know me, my name is Bobby Outson. I'm a senior client success manager here at EdApp. I'm delighted to have Sarah Donellan from Marley Spoon, who is my client. So we know each other quite a bit. So I'm excited to host this customer webinar with you today, and just really get to know, really get to share Sarah's program with everyone on the call today, because I think what they have going on is really special. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I think before we get started here, I just want to mention too that if you guys have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or Q&A. I'll be monitoring that throughout the webinar today. And I'll probably stop every now and then to let Sarah answer some of the questions that she might have. So feel free to throw them in there. All right, awesome. So, all right, Sarah. So I think to start, if you could just give a little bit of a background on, your company, like what does Marley Spoon do and your role there, I think that would be a great start.
Cool. So thanks for having us, Bobby. EdApp and Marley Spoon are desperately best friends all the time. We're constantly in contact, whether it's in Australia and US. So it's nice to get to talk to you when it's not me just being super needy. So Marley Spoon's a meal kit company. We were founded in Berlin. We have locations in Europe, Australia, and the US, from Perth, Melbourne, Sydney, to FCs in California, Texas, New Jersey, offices in New York, again in Sydney, Berlin, Portugal, the Netherlands. We're kind of everywhere. So that's one of the great things about EdApp, is that we can be that flexible, but also be unified. I'm the learning and development manager here in the US, so I oversee putting together content and learning pathways, career development plans for our individuals, predominantly in the FCs, trying to grow our teams there, where we have the most opportunities.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for that introduction. Yeah, let's get into some of the other questions that we have here now. So looking back, a few years ago now to when you first launched your EdApp program, were there any unique challenges that you were trying to solve when you originally took on EdApp?
Sure. Pandemic, big one, huge one. Most unique challenge everyone faced jointly. And also coming in later than the game. The Australian team launched this first and was incredibly successful. We were scrambling through supply chain issues and it was like the worst possible time. But we were also bringing in people at a rate that was insane. Like Marley Spoon was an essential business during the pandemic. So our workforce increased, I think, like 70%. It was insane. The hiring was wild. We knew that we were putting ourselves at additional liability every day by not training people in the proper food safety, forklift safety, all of the things, but we couldn't have people in a conference room anymore. So it was a pretty unique challenge. And we didn't know how to navigate it. And luckily, EdApp was there and was a really great, unique solution for us at the time, and it's still.
Great, awesome, glad to hear. Awesome. Yeah, so why don't we spend some time, I guess this next question is kind of a two-part question. I guess first, if you can explain who your audience is, and then how it's been deploying EdApp across multiple job functions at Marley Spoon.
Right. So we have a very diverse workforce. I mean, straight out of high school to straight to almost retirement. We have anybody who wants to join our workforce, whether native English speakers or not. We actually have, I think, in our company, 46 languages are spoken, not natively. So that's a pretty big challenge. And so when I talk about just the US only, I think our big challenge is cultural diversity. Like California is very different than Newark, and the sites are different. They have their own cultures, they have their own learning approaches. So that was the challenge. And can you tell me the second question again? I'm sorry.
How it is pretty much deploying an app across different
Yes.
different aspects of people at your company?
So that comes into the culture piece. In Texas, we just do, right? We just like go forward and do. Here's EdApp, do it, we're done, no problem. In New Jersey, it's a little bit more of a held hand. And then in California, we had a really serious challenge with the site lead there is he's a bit old school in his thinking. He comes from the 90s manufacturing background. His kids are in high school right now. So when the pandemic did happen and his kids were e-learning as their education, he took a real hard stance on learning and that approach, to the point of he even built out a classroom in the new FC that we built so that he could deliver these old PowerPoint presentations. And we've overcome that hurdle with the group later too. It's a success, but it definitely, EdApp allows for us now to kind of reach everyone because of the variety of offerings that it has.
Awesome. Awesome. I actually have a question here from Aaron. He's asking, how do you handle employees that don't have or don't want to use their personal phone for
Oh
trainings?
yeah, totally. That happens a lot actually in the Netherlands and in California, right? There's specific laws that prevent us from forcing people to use their phones as well in the European teams. So it's kind of had us lagging. But one of the great things about EdApps is you can use a tablet or a desktop, right? So in Texas, for instance, we have a lot of individuals that do prepaid phones. They don't have data, right? Because we do a lot of manufacturing there. So what we did was we bought 4 Samsung tablets, pretty reasonably cheap. And then we also bought the attachments to them so that they can have a keyboard on them. We put them in a conference room, and on their first day of orientation, we just log them into their account in that way, and they are able to go.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks so much for answering that question. And yeah, keep them coming, guys.
Thanks.
All right, let's move on here. What has the learner's experience been like for your learners?
Really good, actually. It's opened up. I think it's opened up our workforce to the possibilities of growing and developing in the company, having the tools. It's made it easier for us to identify people that may be more introvert but are going above and beyond in the learning aspect and learning on their own. I put the stat in there that in this year alone, with our current active users, we've had over 5,700 courses completed, but 2,742 of those are not mandatory. They're just doing them on their own. Yeah, Kevin, I can definitely talk about that in a minute. So basically, it drives people to the platform where they can start to explore what they want. Because actually, this morning I was reading from Harvard Business Review. They're doing a manager course basically throughout the year, and it was talking about how individuals know what they want to get better at. They know what they need. We know ourselves best. We know what we want to explore and improve upon. For myself, it was learning and development. We all have those things. And it's shown time and time again. The courses that these people are taking are getting started with Excel, hosting and supporting displaced persons, mental resilience in a global pandemic, management skills, like tons of management and communication skills. They've shown that they know what they want and they are pursuing it time and time again on their own time. Like, we're not paying them for any of this. They're just doing it. And
Right.
then content. Should I answer that question now?
Sure. Yeah. That was actually one of my questions coming up in a little bit. But yeah, if you can just describe, what's your process for creating content or bringing other content into EdApp, that'd be great.
Sure. So I have my cat do it, if you didn't hear my cat just now. So EdApp has a ginormous library to build stuff off of, which I think is really great for things that I'm definitely not an expert. My background is food safety and quality assurance, and then a chef before that. So I have a lot of that technical knowledge and a lot of skill sets aside from that, but I am not a subject matter expert in everything. And I think sometimes learning development managers have this I don't know, burden of supposed to be an expert in communication and Excel and conflict management and all of these things. And it's like, I know I'm not that. So what's great about EdApp is I can take what other experts have already drafted and tailor it to our needs, our branding, and all of that is very quick and easy. Another thing that I do is I empower the team leads to build their own content. You want to build, you want a training about picking? Okay, let me teach you how to build a training, because then they're in control, they're utilizing the platform, and then they have their team members use it more and more and more because they're part of something instead of just delivering something.
Amazing answer. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. I do have a couple questions, but I want to get through a couple other points before I address those. So just had a couple of more questions when it comes to learners and EdApp versus other systems. So the next question I want to ask is, how does EdApp compare to other systems that you've used?
Sure. So predominantly in the past, we were using PowerPoint. I think everybody's done that, like, or Google
Yeah.
Slides. It's newer, but it's old at the same time. I kind of related to like CDs, right? They're like that kind of intermediary between doing live trainings where you're in the conference room to just on-demand learning in general. And I think that they have value. However, I think that we are able to move beyond them and do kind of a blend, right? So with the PowerPoint, the problems that we faced were we weren't being able to record, we weren't recording the data properly, right? Everybody had a piece of paper in their office, handwritten. What happens when that person leaves, right? The Department of Labor in the US requires for you to hold those training records for 3 years, and life moves super fast and those records get lost very easily. And fortunately, with EdApp, we're able to house that data in one spot. It doesn't matter who goes where, what happens. So that was one big win, is getting away from those PowerPoint presentations. That also lose people in a conference room that might be too warm or too cold, and then updating that information. And like, also, who knows what some people are trying to share in those conference rooms. Like, some of that stuff is way old school thinking and off base. Like, EdApp gives us the ability to control the content on a global platform, so we can make sure our brand is unified all the way around the world.
Right. And we'll talk about analytics in a little bit too. We could talk about how that's impacted you by using our analytics suite. But yeah, first, I just wanted to ask one more question about learners. So this probably resonates with a lot of people on the call. How do you overcome learner or facilitator hesitation? Because I know you use practical assessments in that app.
So how do we overcome learner hesitation? Well, we don't force it down their throat, right? We just ask them, before you start employment, here's the compulsory trainings that you must take. Here's the platform. Use it as you will. And we had those 2,742 courses taken by our active users, not to mention that's not including people who are no longer with us. I think that you can't force people to learn. I think you can't jam it down their throats. Now, when we want to share things, it's easy to do with that app. Like, for instance, we're talking about, like, we're doing a pulse survey right now. We send a notification to all of our learners. Here's the link. They go to the website, or they go to the app, like it immediately takes them to the app, and then the banner on the top takes them directly to our pulse survey. And then they might come back and they might pick out training that they want to do. So we try to like make sure it's as democratized as possible and let everything be there for them. I think that's been a good approach for us.
Yeah, which I think is important too, where you have your core courses that you need for them to take, and then they could take the rest on their own.
I think also, if you make those core courses, if you take the time to make them really good and engaging, it makes people come back.
Right.
You don't just slap something out there because it solidify, or it like takes care of a checkbox. You make it good content, you make it pretty, spend some time on it, make it engaging.
Right.
And people want to come back and see what else is available. Also,
Exactly.
too, one of the things that we do is we utilize EdApp as our resource kit, right? So if you're an associate, you don't have access to Google, the Google Suite and the Slack that everyone else does. So we drive company announcements on it. We drive the pulse surveys on it. We drive the assessments on it. We drive our Wisply, which is our internal complaint network. We'd have our handbook on there. We have our code of conduct. We have just all the information that you would need to be an employee to be successful. We just keep bringing you back to the platform and hope that while you're there, you explore something else.
Awesome. Awesome. Um, we do have a couple questions. Just I still want to get through a couple more of my questions first before we get to the chat's questions. Yeah, let's do a few more here. So we already talked about how you create content and bring it in. Yeah, so we know creating a culture of learning is really important for you with EdApp. How do you go about creating a framework that encourages this, for those warehouse employees at Marley Spoon?
Yeah, I think it's the democratizing that really helps there, because what you don't want is what we have is we have FCs, right? We have a corporate office, or we call it our test kitchen, which is where all of our national employees sit, like myself. We have a global office, which is in Berlin, right? And what we don't want to create is class systems in that, right? Because that really makes people demoralized, right? I'm and we recognize that there's different groups within each one, different cultures and different needs in each one, right? But what we want to do is make sure that if you're a sanitation worker in Texas, you have the same opportunities for learning development and for growth and for engagement that the head of production or the head of culinary has in the New York office, because that is the right thing to do. Now, you may not utilize it, so we kind of have a system in the back to make sure that it's known that it's available. Those learning pathways are available. However, however you want to pursue them. And I think that is really what makes it different for us, is that it's for everyone.
Right, right. And I think that's really important too. Awesome. All right. Yeah, let's get into another one here. So, what are the ways you can get your employees up to speed quickly on new company information?
And banners and notification, that those are the huge ones, right? So this happened on Friday. The head of production reached out to me. Hi, Ophelia. She wants to know what's happening. For our quarterly pulse survey, our engagement was really low, and the only way that we were able to increase engagement last quarter was through EdApp. Right. And so our target is 80% completion of our quarterly pulse survey. So we can know going into 2023, like where we can improve as a company. But when only 6% of your employees answer, how are you supposed to,
Right.
no? So, and most of them are, they just don't, it's not for lack of one, it's just they don't take the time or don't know. So
Right.
we send a push notification to our dynamic user group. It was all our L1s, which are associates. Push notification to the user group on Friday, which sent them to the main page of EdApp. First banner on the page is quarterly pulse survey. Click here. Super clear, consistent. They click on that and it takes them directly to our Qualtrics page, right? Because it's a hyperlink. And all of a sudden, we have like 40% completion in New Jersey this morning.
Right. Right. And
Way up
I
from
think
6.
right. Yeah, way up. I have some examples here of some banners that are in Sarah's account here, and I just think that they look really good. Could you just elaborate on how you create these banners? Do you use
Yeah.
Canva? Is there something else that you use to create these?
I do use Canva actually. They have a lot of preloaded pretty things, like the company announcements one here. I mean, I just literally slapped in company announcements, click here, took me 0 time. For the Marley
Right.
Spoon all hands, I think this one's actually really important to share real quick too, is the all hands. So we have all hands that has, and we want to make sure everybody has that information, right? It's recorded. Obviously, there's some confidential information you're going to want to pull out of there, which we do edit out in Canva, and then upload to YouTube and then share on a YouTube slide in EdApp. Sounds more complicated than it is. Actually, usually it takes me about 10 minutes after the hour and a half long all hands to edit out the information I don't want shared possibly to HelloFresh or Blue Apron.
Hmm.
And then we post it up here, and we have people just organically going there as well and learning about the projects that are happening in their facilities or what's happening nationally, new content in the skills center. Sometimes I'm like, you know what? I haven't refreshed things in a long time. I'm just going to head over to the EdApp library. I'm going to rifle through it and find stuff I've overheard in conversations, pull that in, bam, banner, put it right at the beginning. And then all of a sudden, all that content starts to flow in again. Courses to get you green. We're big on sustainability. So it's actually made by our sustainability manager here. And like, it's when we, especially in March, when we're talking about like Earth Day and all of those sorts of things, we push this one to the front again, or we revise it. But basically it talks about courses to get you green, like how to manage your food waste at home, how to teach children about sustainability. I think this year it'll take you to our corporate sustainability pledge, and then where we are, the pulse on that. So we use them a lot. I think every one of our banners is hyperlinked to something. And I think that's one of the best tools, honestly. Also, it's the first thing they see, right? So like if you looked at LinkedIn Learning, which I don't want to brand other people, it's like there's some stuff at the top, and then there's suggested for you, which isn't controlled by the company that is providing you with the tool. And then at the bottom is your branded materials. At least with this year, the first thing they see is the hot new stuff and the most pertinent stuff to their job. And you
Right.
can make it dynamic too, right? I think that new feature came out recently where it's tailored to like your job description or
Yep.
your department or your site. You can bump that one to the front.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think what's important too is that if you're you, as Sarah said, you can put hyperlinks in these banners. So if you're not doing that, I would definitely highly recommend that to take them to maybe it's an external web page, or maybe it's a web page on your company website or something like that. I would definitely recommend that.
I think we even put our job postings up there. I don't think you have it here, but I think our 6th banner in the loop, I may have turned it off, but takes you directly to Workable, where you can see all the jobs I have open and people can apply for.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Which is a great idea. All right. Cool. Yeah. Let's move on here. Let's talk a little bit about analytics now. So I know that you say you're a data-driven company. How is the analytics provided by EdApp allowed for you to improve your training?
Yeah, so we can target people. I do not like to go with a wide net. I like to go strategic. When we talk about the pandemic, that's really critical because you can't have that wide net of pulling people into a conference room. And it's just as important now as we go into these looming like economic times. Who knows what's going to happen? Everybody's cutting costs, especially in learning development, where typically we are nice to have. I'm able to like drive down cost of learning development and training hours by saying, okay, Javier needs 45 minutes of clocked in training time today, instead of saying, well, I don't think that the repack room has had its training in Texas. I don't really know. I don't know dates. I don't know. I can say Javier hasn't completed his training this year. Get him in the office now, sit him in front of the Samsung. Let's go. And I can send these messages very quickly via Slack to get people to get the trainings that he done. Right now, we're pushing to get in January to get departmental trainings for bloodborne pathogens and lockout tagout and STS. And I can say, okay, based on your job description, these 10 people in Texas need to sit in the conference room and complete their annual right now. Super easy.
Right.
Very strategic.
And I think that kind of relates to a question that Anthony had. And he's saying, beyond course completions and app visits, how do you measure performance outcomes? Similarly, how do you determine and address remedial learning needs and opportunities?
So that's part of our 2023 plan, right? So our plan there is to do rollout assessments, quarterly assessments, so that everybody's on the same page. Essentially, what we'll be able to do is say, where is your room for improvement, and then here are the courses that we can assign in EdApp to get. I don't want to say better because I think that's the wrong term, but to grow. So the assessments we'll see how we utilize that data. I mean, I think when we started EdApp, I thought it would go one way, and then it's actually blossomed into a whole different thing. So I don't want to to forecast, but I think the assessments will be a big piece in that.
Awesome. Cool. Talking bigger picture now, what impact have you seen from EdApp? I guess like a bigger picture. Maybe it's affecting your training. Maybe it's something bigger than that.
I think it's creating a culture of curiosity, which is super important, right? Nobody wants to go to work and just drudgily put a lemon in a box every day. And nobody wants that. They want to understand why they're doing the lemon. They want to understand who decided the lemon is going in the box. How do I become a decider of the lemon in the box? Yeah, I think it's created a culture of curiosity. I think that it also, I think a good example is our California team, where I spoke about Robbie before, about his hesitation with e-learning. Because there's a diverse way to deliver the information at EdApp with these group trainings. When we were able to sit down and meet, had face to face at Robbie and I, we came to an understanding, right? Like these trainings are critical. Both of us agreed the content was critical. It was the delivery method which we were struggling with, right? So we figured out, like, okay, we have this group training setting availability now. Let's utilize it here. So we were able to take, and I took a quick note, and on September 1st, our training number was, let's see, where did my note go? Because it's really actually pretty impressive what he did. It went from 23% on September 1st to yesterday, we were at 78.8% completions and mandatory completions for a workforce of 100, which may not seem like a lot, but what he's doing is he's bringing folks into the conference room, sharing the training on the screen, and then he's pausing in between and letting people ask questions about the content, which I think is pretty unique, right? And then they're all marked as complete, right? And so we're getting great results. People are more curious. They want to take more courses with Robbie like this. It's become a weekly part of their culture. Every week, every Wednesday and every Sunday, they have an hour where they like all sit down together and train. Whoever needs to be in the class is brought in. If anybody else wants to come in, they're allowed to come in and take it again. And it creates a culture of training.
Right. Awesome. Yeah, because a couple of my other questions were around blended learning that I think can tie into a couple of questions that we wanted to talk about too. So we have group training, we have practical assessments. I think some of that's in your plans for 2023.
Group training is a big one. As
Yeah,
we
so
start to
you
come
just
back
want to touch on
together.
that? Cool.
I'm sorry?
I was gonna say, do you just want to touch on that for a little bit? And then I think I
Yeah.
just have like one more question, and then we can get into the audience questions.
No worries. Yeah, as we come more and more together, the conference rooms, people become more and more comfortable, like being together, mask on, mask off, whatever the case may be. We don't want to abandon the process that we've created. We don't want to leave it behind, because micro learning is huge for us. And I think that's been a great part. The group learning has been great because, for instance, in Texas right now, I'm virtually hosting a radical candor session, right? Where for 2 hours, basically we talk about radical candor. We like have group discussions, facilitate all of that, but that training should get recorded somewhere. So I use the group training setting to record all those individuals, and we use EdApp as our LMS essentially, and record all of those things. So the group training is a huge piece for 2023, and I see us using it more and more as we get back in the conference rooms as well. And these team building and group building sessions, we'll be utilizing it more and more.
Awesome. And then, yeah, there's a question on this, but was also one of my questions too. What features would you love to see on the platform in the future that EdApp currently doesn't have?
What features?
Or it could be like an extension of one of the features that we currently have.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to see more flexibility with the assessments, right? Because we are very familiar with, we use Safety Culture iAuditor in the warehouses already. I know a lot of the things that I asked for, you guys are already working on, so that's like such a hard question. I think the assessments, the wallet feature that's coming out with like the certificates and existing material, like if you have your food handlers or your OSHA 10 or your driver's license, for instance, we're piloting in some of our regions having our own delivery drivers. You need to have a driver's license and proof of insurance, as with, all of those things. And just having that in the digital wallet that we spoke about. Yeah, and just fleshing out some of the analytics, even though they're already great. Like
There's
I
always
don't
more,
get me
right?
started. You know, I like how I could do like a Santa's wish list. Like every time you ask me what I want, I'm like, I don't know. I'll just ask for whatever will stick.
Yeah. All right, cool. So I think that pretty much sums up everything I wanted to ask. Looks like we have a few questions in the chat that we can start going through now. All right, so Gil asks, is there a correlation between the elective learning consumed and people leaving the business? Are they developing skills for their next career step externally?
No, they're staying with us.
Yeah. And I think something that you do really well too is could you explain a little bit how you kind of like identify people for maybe like promotions within your company based off of the courses that they take?
Yeah, and we're gonna be like rolling that out even more with the assessments. It's gonna be tied more with that. But basically just identifying people, okay, who's taking intro into management styles? Are they ready to be a senior associate? Maybe because the way that our company works is we have associate, senior associate, lead senior associate, team lead, which is the next level, and an area manager and the manager, right? So it's a big ladder to climb. There's a lot of like small groups, but with those essays with the senior associates, we identify like, okay, you've completed some manager courses. One of my favorite things that just happened out of Texas is I have this manager named Hugo, and he's wonderful. Like we've done a lot together. He's helped me like roll out a lot of Texas initiatives through EdApp, and his team lead got promoted to be like basically next to him, and he was really frustrated because he needs his team lead, right? And he was like, "Hey, how do I upskill some of these people really quickly?" And I was like, "Well, let's do." So we typically like we do. We have peer-to-peer training as well as in-house peer-to-peer training. We recorded those, we put them on EdApp. It's our Spoon Academy. And so like I was like, you could do Spoon Academy. I curated a playlist for him that he could share with them, and whoever completes it and follows your other competencies, they should be considered for the promotion. He sent me a picture like maybe an hour later. He has all three of them in a conference room. He has the intro into Excel on the board, and he's like, we're doing this now. So I think like we're using it now to identify those folks that are ready for the next step. If you're committed enough to take the trainings to invest in yourself, you're probably going to commit a little bit more in the company
Right.
and the product.
Right. Definitely a good sign. Awesome. Thanks for that. Yeah, I got a few more questions in here. Got one from Aaron. How do you manage curriculum development from several different leads without having duplication or overlap of course naming conventions? So I guess this question's about if you have multiple authors in an account, is there anything that you do like organization wise, or, do you let your authors know, these are the ground rules for making content at all?
I let them know the ground rules for creating content. A lot of times, like what happens is, so for instance, we had this training rollout a month ago, 2 months ago, we started working on it. And it was picker training. And we had tried to create a picker training in the past. It wasn't completed for whatever reason. Actually, I think the individual went on maternity leave, which also happened to me. So there was a stall in our progress during that time for like creating new content. So she wanted to create a picker training. It was spearheaded by the head of production. So I brought her in and I was like, okay, this is how you create content. This is how you start to draft. This is what we have in existence that you can work with. And these are some other materials that you can have. And then someone else came to me and was like, hey, the head of production wants me to create a training about picking. And I was like, great. This is Megana. She's already working on this. Here's the materials. I'm going to give you a similar training, and I'm going to ask you guys to work together, and I'm only going to have one delivery. And I think the critical thing is we have a funnel, right? So people are creating content, but it goes through essentially me. I'm the final stampies. I review it before it goes out. I make sure that it's branded properly. I make sure that it's not repetitive to what we already have, so we're not getting like confusion. I make sure it's delivered to the correct dynamic user group and the correct audience so that it's getting the right eyes on it. Maybe I'll create a banner. When we had our and encore process re-released as a internal product called Onion instead of Zendesk, we branded it, we put it up on the banner, we like did a big launch of it, we talked about it in our all hands, but it was only one point of truth, and that because it funnels through me.
Right. And I think what's nice too is, which could help a little bit, is we have the review tool that should be released to everyone later this week. That would help you review courses. Yeah. So it's really
I don't
exciting.
want to go into what our old school process was like a year ago, but it was Google Sheets heavy, and I cannot wait for this new feature to roll out. I'm so excited. I've even got the folks that are working on the picking training are like, oh my God, seriously? We could have really used that. Instead of 2 meetings talking about how to align, they could just have emails back and forth quickly. They're very excited for their 2.0 training that they're creating.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. I think you kind of touched on this a little bit. When it comes to onboarding, it seems like most of that's done individually by learners in EdApp, but it sounded like there was one of the FCs that does some onboarding in like a group training facet. Is that the case?
So in New Jersey and New Jersey and Texas, before you're allowed to come to orientation, you have to complete your EdApp. It is a non-starter. You do not enter our floor. You do not create any additional risk or liability for us unless you have completed your EdApp. If you don't, we push your start date out twice. And if you don't complete by then you don't start with us because we've asked you to do one simple task. We pay them all. We prorate three hours for EdApp and eFood handlers, which is more than enough time for associates. The case with California is we didn't have a people ops person out there. We still don't. So that's very unique. We don't have human resources out there right now. We're running human resources from a national perspective. So that's why we had this gap. As of September 1st in California, they have to complete their training before they start. That left a gap of folks who started before September 1st that didn't have theirs. So that's why we're doing the group trainings to kind of tighten that gap. I would highly recommend that if you join the platform today, tomorrow, next week, next month, utilizing this group training to get your numbers really up there, because you will feel like you're in quicksand if you don't. That is my number one recommendation, is definitely utilize that group training if you're adding this to your system now, or you want to add a new training to your deck, right? It gets everybody up to speed very quickly, and then you can just move on and do like individual, like as you go.
Yeah. One thing that I think we had something in the chat about this too. One thing to keep in mind is that if you want for them to do a quiz, that should be done in like a non-group training setting. So it could be something that they go through the group training together and they're like, okay, log on to the app, or, whip the app up, or log on, via a computer or something like that, and take this quiz now to get those scores recorded.
It'd be actually a really great idea for that, Bobby, is you can set it so that course isn't complete until X amount of lessons have been completed. So you could run the lesson in your group session, and it's not complete until they open up their app and then hit the next lesson, which is the quiz.
That is a good point. Yeah. Always coming up with wish list items for me, which is great. All right, cool. It looks like we got a couple more too that I want to get through. These are pretty good, actually, I think. So another one from Aaron. How do you keep employees from spending too much time of their workday on non-required trainings?
Honestly, they don't. We don't allow phones on the factory floor. So that's not really an issue. We do have a production manager in Australia who is hell-bent on believing that people take like production time, like they want to slack off and get off the factory floor to like trade. And I'm like, I almost laugh about it because we host trainings all the time, and like to get people to like take the time to invest in themselves is incredibly difficult. It is incredibly difficult for people to stop working and invest in their future. But we don't have that problem. In short, we have, I think, what do we have? 543 employees in Marley Spoon US. And I've never been come to by a site lead or a team lead being like, Steve's over there again, getting better at communication. Like, it just doesn't happen.
All right, cool.
Begging, like, how can we get more communication training? So
right. Awesome. And then got one on banners, actually. So what's the rule of thumb for retiring a banner? Asked David. When does it become stale? So do you have any like best practices on retiring banners, or?
I just think about what I like to see, right?
Okay.
So sometimes I'll do I'll do the same content, like it'll be the same hyperlink. I'll just change the banner because I know it makes it more interesting to our users that are checking in every day or so. You get bored with the same stuff. So sometimes I get bored with it, or I look at it. Like, who hasn't like looked at something they did like 6 months and they go, silly old me, like that's ridiculous. Yeah. Like, so we get better as we do. And so I think, I think I just refresh as I feel like it's become stale, or when I realize it's become stale. And then luckily for me too, we're always adding new content. So it seems like there's always a new banner to add and then take something off.
Right.
So
I mean, what's nice too about EdApp is that you can have a lot of banners in there now. I think they upped it to like 20 banners. So you could always like reorder them too if you have something that kind of want to still have up there, but maybe has been posted for a while. So
Yeah, we did that with COVID and with safety protocols, like reminding people about safety things. Sometimes I turn the safety one on and off just so it cycles kind of back in. Like I know that sounds like a silly thing, turning safety banner on and off, but like it gets people. I see a spike in hits to the course that's attached to it whenever I do that. Because
gotcha.
again, too, we also constantly have new people coming into the system. We're hiring all the time, so
Right.
like you're always hitting a new audience. It's not old for them. It's old for you. That's it.
Right. Awesome. All right. I think we just have time for one more from the chat. Lucas asked, what about the gamification process? Are there any best practices that you have to share when it comes to gamification?
Well, I'm really bad about this. It's not the best for me. We internally we do a little bit of competition, right? We did recently leaderboards paired off of the leaderboards in EdApp. Like we took that information and we made it on the big poster board in New Jersey to share with people where they were. And we gave gift cards, whoever was like, because that's more tangible than like a digital. So we incorporated real life with the platform. I know gamification is like a big part of EdApp and it's a big part of the cell. And I think that our Australian team has had a lot of success with it. I think maybe it's our culture in our Marley Spoon culture where we like kind of hybrid it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that depending on your use case, some audiences like it more simple, which is fine. I mean, what's nice is that you can go in and kind of make it your own, but we do recommend that you throw in maybe not a game, but a couple of quiz questions every now and then that are gamified, or if you wanted to use a leaderboard or some of the other engagement features that we have, they're there for you to utilize, but you don't have to use them. So yeah,
I
I
would
think
say
that's
one
good.
thing about that actually ties back to the last question, right? It's not like you're playing what's the burst the bubble game, right? It's not a game for like us,
Mm-hmm.
like it's a learning platform for us. We want people to take it that way. They're not playing like forget what the color it's called, where you do like the bubble and you like go through and connect all the colors, and it's not
Candy
like that.
Crush.
So it's not like Candy Crush, right? So they're not like trying to like win these gift cards. So they're not like on the floor like just whipping their phone out quickly trying to get stars. Like
Yeah.
we have people getting stars just because they want to know how many stars they can get. Like I have like one user, she'll take the course over and over again until she gets all the stars, just because it's like her OCD.
Yeah.
But it definitely keeps it from being like a hindrance to productivity, So
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, I think we're just about at time here. Thanks everyone for being so active in the chat and in the Q&A today. And Sarah, thanks again for taking the time out to talk with everyone today.
my pleasure. Listen, if anybody has any questions about EdApp or wants to like see, like obviously reach out to Bobby. He's super responsive, but if you want to talk further with me, you can reach out to me via Bobby as well.
Yeah, I'll put my email in the chat for you guys if you have any further questions in the program, or if you have any questions for Sarah. Again, she's great and can definitely answer any questions that you have. But yeah, awesome. The recording of this will be posted on our webinars website eventually, maybe in a few days, and potentially to YouTube as well. So if you're looking for a recording, you can definitely check out both of those options. So awesome. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for your time and have a great rest of your day. Thanks again,
Everybody have
Sarah.
wonderful days. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.